Greetings and welcome to Bring It On. My name is Bob Hayes and I'm going to be your host for today's show. It's nice to be here at Whitman Hanson Community Access in this beautiful new studio that's been recreated. It's like being in this giant, well-lit room. We're going to call this segment of Bring It On Election 2024. I'm having the pleasure of, in Hanson, we have a three-way race for Select Board. We have Rein, who's the incumbent, and she is with me today. We have Joe Weeks, who is the incumbent, and he will be taking an interview soon. And we have Frank Milisi, who is a newcomer, and he's running. So we have three people running for two seats. But as I said, I'm proud to have Rein. Ann, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
As I understand it, and what we're here for today, people have been crying out for they want to meet the candidates. They want to see what people stand for. They want to know what you're involved in. Right. And Ann, you kind of get into this, and correct me if I'm wrong with any statements I say today, because this is so the voters can understand what's going on here in Hanson. You have been on the Board of Selectmen for 2 years, and you took a seat through an election.
Yes. Of
Matt Dyer retiring early. Yep. Am I correct in saying that?
He served 1 year of his 3-year term and had to leave for personal reasons.
Okay. And so there was an election, though. Mm-hmm. So you've been on the Select Board, and I'm liable to say Selectman because I'm a little rusty with this.
I have no problem with that.
But it's a Select Board. You've been on the Select Board for 2 years, so you've already got your feet wet to the process. Let the people know in Hanson kind of who is Rein, because in the last few years, like I said, we haven't had this interaction that we might be able to have, and it's tough to figure out who is Rein when you go to a Select Board meeting and you have a chair and a vice chair and you just get right into the town business. Kind of tell them about years in the town, what you've done, what you are. I know you're in the beekeeper organization, and I probably didn't say that properly, but
Plymouth
give
County
it to
Beekeepers
us.
Association. I moved into Hanson in 1978, had my 2 boys in town. I haven't left. I tend to stay when I stick to things. Let's see.
Your kids are Whitman Hanson graduates?
Whitman Hanson graduates, both of them. Christopher in 2003 and Marco in 1999. They're 4 years apart. I've been paying attention to politics, but I couldn't really get involved with it because I was involved with the Plymouth County Beekeepers Association, and I was the president of it for 10 years. And it sounds like that's kind of it's a big job. There's a lot of work there. We made it into a 501c3, and we got it all, real and official. And I really enjoy beekeeping. My husband and I we're going to have 6 hives this year. Bee month is next month, so April is when they come up. But anyways, as I got a little bit older, had a little bit less responsibilities and things I had to pay attention to, I really wanted to get involved with the town because I love the town. I love the town of Hanson. I've made it my life to live, it's where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. I think Pine Box, I'm going out.
Let's not discuss that.
I know. So anyways, one of the things is I'm very political, pay attention to a lot of different things, and one of the things that I kept hearing was that you had to get involved locally. You had to be involved with your local boards. And I thought, okay, so I dove right into Select Board. Years ago, I was on the Conservation Commission before kids. But once I had my kids, I kind of gave that up. But I was on conservation back in the early 80s, I think.
Well, lots of times people come into elected official positions and they have an agenda, and it doesn't sound like you had any agenda. You just decided when it was time, it was time.
Yeah. And I wanted to learn the process. I still have a lot to learn. I've learned a lot. I learned a lot from Mr. Hickey. I've learned a lot from Laura. There's a lot to learn. It's interesting to me.
Well, it has a tremendous amount of value, per se, for the people in the town because it affects their taxes. Yes. And having said that, we might as well jump right into it.
Head first.
Exactly. Well, it's kind of how we roll. Yeah. I've been being an elected official formally. I get what happens. Right. And it's difficult because every single year, everything goes up, whether it's gas, oil, or heating oil, or stuff.
Groceries.
For residents. Everything goes up, including taxes.
Right.
And it's a very difficult subject, but we're here. That's what we're here for. People want to know what their dollar values are. And I'm going to be interviewing the other two candidates, and I'm also going to be interviewing, hopefully, the three candidates for the school board. So I have contacted them, and I'm hoping they'll contact me. And usually as I open, and not to jump in any of the discussion, if you want to contact me, when I sign off, you'll see how you can contact me, because here at Bring It On and Whitman Hanson Community Access, we're looking for your input. We want your input. We want your questions. So anything about today's interview or further interviews, we're trying to share it and make this a better place to live. So go on with the select board stuff. Budgets.
It's a big job watching the budgets. I'm a Pilates instructor by trade, and when I became an instructor, I used the phrase, I was now on the other side of the footbar. And that means, it's a different view when you're teaching something as opposed to when you're just a client, you come in and do it. It's the same thing as being on the select board. You get on the other side of that table and you start to understand why things happen the way they happen in the town. Why do the tax? Why do we spend money on this, that, or the other thing? We have to. It's not an option for some things. Other things, you can work around. So, anyways, I'm a conservative, fiscally conservative person. I don't like the taxes going up, but I'm a realist too. I mean, everything goes up. It's not like the town gets a discount on their gasoline for their town trucks. It's not like the town gets a discount on their, anything. Everything
Insurance
goes up. Everything does. And we have to pick and choose how we fund it and if we can fund it. We've done really good with grants. The people that are in the town hall now work really hard to get us good grants for various things. Good things are happening, I think. The redevelopment, hopefully more so on Main Street and stuff, but they're going to redo the walkways and stuff down there. That's all done by grants. We're not paying for it. So we're always looking for ways to get things done without tapping the taxpayers. But now, with this new school budget, we're going to have to tap the taxpayers, perhaps. I have to say I'll get myself in trouble. I'm very disappointed that there was not willingness on the town of the school board, not the school board, but the school department, the budget people, to tap into their own available free cash, which I understand they have, to ease this burden on us, because we said 5%. We actually asked for 3.8. We said 3.8. We went to 5. And they disregarded that completely, doubled it to 10.2, I think. That's untenable. We can't do it. We just can't do it.
You're talking about assessment now, though.
Assessment.
The assessment to the town.
Right, the assessment to the town, yes.
Because if you had a
Whitman's even higher. Whitman's 11 point something.
Right,
Yeah.
but if you had a $63 million budget, and this is part of the difficulty in what you're talking about with towns,
right.
and it went up 10%, it would go up $6.3 million.
Right.
The assessment's a little bit different than the budget.
Right.
And one of the reasons, everyone knows, I think, I was on the school committee for
Yes.
18 years, I was the chair for 15. So it gets difficult, and that's why we're having this conversation. It's kind of like, for the people that are watching, if your driveway goes bad and your windows go bad and your roof goes bad, you're dealing with one house. The school department is dealing with 6 buildings,
yeah.
and you have to deal with, as a town, like when roads go bad in Hanson, there's a lot of work, a lot more involved, because there's miles of road versus 200 feet of driveway. So
Right.
I think that's where you were going. Correct me
Well,
if I'm
it is,
wrong.
and I also, as I said, I'm still learning, and I have a lot to learn about this whole budget process and how it all works. All I know is we have to have a willingness for everybody to look at what they want to do and make it affordable for both towns to accomplish it. And I always hear the threats that, we're going to, it's going to take away from the children's education, the children. There's a lot of people in between those children and the top of that pile. There's a lot of things that could probably be looked at and made more affordable. And that's what I want them to do. I'm holding to that 5% number. And if we're going to put an override on the warrant, if we're doing that, it'll be up for the townspeople to decide.
Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
but I mean, that, everyone has to take a stance
Yeah, and that's my stand.
somewhere. And by being on the select board, I'm certain there's other types of things that are going on in other departments
yeah.
that need to be assessed, we'll say, so to speak. It's, when
Well,
you run a town, it's like running a huge business.
All the people, everybody's, their costs have all gone up. They all want more money. Everybody wants more. I understand that. But I also keep in mind the fact that there's a lot of people in town that don't make that much money, and they can't afford to absorb everybody else's increases. So I'm always mindful of that, and I'm particularly mindful of the older people on fixed incomes. I'm fortunate. My husband's still working. We can afford our house. We can afford our taxes. I don't want them to go up, but I know people in town that are struggling, and really older people that, like in the wintertime, keep their houses at 55 degrees. That to me is ridiculous. Nobody should be forced into that position. And they've paid their taxes for decades. It's not like they're just Johnny-come-latelys into town and like they want free stuff. No, they need some help, and they need some easement, I think, in these costs.
Well, as you're saying, everything goes up. I mean, there was an event recently for the food pantry, because the food pantry's getting a tremendous a bigger increase in people using it.
Yeah.
Because they're getting more desperate, might be even a good word to use, correct? Also, in that same vein, people don't know how to change things. And part of it is because the process as a voting member of a town is difficult. I know that I think it may have even been Hanson, because I go to all the town meetings. It's pretty difficult when you have roughly 8,000 voters in the town, and we have trouble getting a quorum, I think, of 100.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a big problem to me. I mean, why?
Any ideas on how to cure it, though?
We advertise it. I reach out to people. I'm trying to get people all the time to come to town meeting. It's their town, and I have to say that one of my frustrations is conducting town business on social media. Way too much of that going on. You won't see me participating on any of those groups, because I won't get involved with it, because it just gets nasty. And there's a lot of people sitting on the other side of those keyboards that don't come to town meeting. They don't come to the select board meetings. They don't hear what's actually going on. They go by some innuendo that came up from somewhere, whatever, instead of just plain finding out the facts.
So misinformation is a lot to do with it.
Misinformation is a huge problem. It's a huge problem. And there's a lot of people that are intentional on it. It's kind of bothersome to me. Knock it off.
Well, I think part of the issue that goes along with that, Ian, is the fact of sometimes you're scaring away good candidates. Sometimes you're scaring away good volunteers. I know, like I said, as an elected official years back, people used to think we all got paid. And I see, I had the same.
I need a raise from what I want a 10% raise from what I'm making right now, which is zero.
A cup of coffee would be a 10% raise from what you're making now, right?
Exactly.
It's $1 something. Well, it's probably $2 for a cup of coffee.
Exactly.
I make my own, so it's but that's a difficult process. Do you see any avenue to how you shut down? And I don't mean shut it down, but sometimes doing shows like this, or maybe coming up with a Facebook page that can spell it out, because people run with it. They get misinformation. It's the old story. It started with this little bug, and then it ended up with a room full of bugs.
An example is the private lane issue that we had, where we put private lane signs up on all of the private lanes in town. And immediately someone started spreading that we were not going to plow them anymore. That was the end of them getting any services. That was never true. That was never true, and that was to me a very malicious thing to start to spread around town.
You mean private streets?
The private streets. That we put signs up on them, only because there was issues in town over whether or not roads were or were not private. So we just outlined them all. These are private. The rest of them aren't. And then we got a couple of or 3 lanes or 3 or 4 streets that we accepted over my time being there. Mm-hmm. But we just identified them. That's all. It had nothing to do with stopping, like grading down in the the
Roller coaster
roller
road
coaster
area.
road stuff like that. It had nothing to do with that or plowing. Those are still getting plowed. They're still getting graded. They're still being taken care of, and we have no reason. We have no intentions of stopping that.
So, do you have what are your thoughts? I know that it's tough to be doing this, would be sitting here because we all have ideas, but that's a very good point that you brought up. How do you stop the information? Do you stop it by giving more information? Because a lot of people say the information highway is clogged, and I think it's clogged with misinformation. And I know the Board of Selectmen and all the boards in town, especially the voluntary boards, are working very hard. There's another big issue in town about zoning, and there's been a tremendous.
Yes, that was a tremendous source of
Where do
misinformation.
you sit with that?
Well,
I know it's
I
not.
have to leave. There's only so much that I can really dive into.
I
It's not
understand.
that I don't want to say it. I really don't know. I know what happened in the whole zoning board of appeals thing and everything. It seems to be calmed down. I don't hear that much rumbling about it anymore. I guess I'm wrong. There must be stuff going on that I haven't heard.
Oh, I hope not, because I haven't heard either.
All right, good. Then I think maybe we've got it under control. Maybe my thing is people have to be honest. Everybody needs to be honest. If you're going to run a town, you have to be honest. You have to be forthright. You have to be transparent. I think everybody knows I'm going to be that. I don't have, this mouth has not much of a filter. But that's at the same time, I mean, I don't have anything to lie about. I want to tell the truth. I want everybody to be working towards a better town of Hanson. That's all I want.
Well, having zoning and talking about housing, and I'm not trying to drag you into the
Oh,
zoning.
okay.
We
All right.
have some misnomers, I think,
Yes.
about what's going on Main Street.
On Main
like
Street,
you
yeah.
will see on the internet, and I know the internet doesn't drive everything, but
Right.
it starts the drama
It
control.
does. It does.
So when the internet says this is going on or that's going on or there's 750 houses going in a 15-acre parcel.
All right. I
Can we talk
I can
about
kind
that?
of address that a little
Okay.
bit. And Tony, don't quote me on this. I went.
Tony, let me just jump. Tony, is he the town planner?
The town planner,
Okay.
yes. So I went to all of those meetings where he was explaining it. The thing that people have to realize, none of us want that MBTA thing. None of us want it. But it's getting shoved down our throats. The best way to deal with it, I think, is to manage it. And all we have to do is designate and pass an area. We don't have to build it. Nothing has to be done on it. It just has to exist on paper. The 750 homes and all that, I don't know where that came from. I mean, we can accommodate so much on that piece of property that's behind the train station. I think that's what
It's like
everybody's
15 acres or something.
It's something like that. It's all privately owned. It would have to be bought. It'd have to be, the buyers would have to be amenable to selling it. But if we just designate the zone, we've accomplished what they want us to accomplish. We don't have to build it. It never has to be built, from what I understand.
Okay.
Just as long as it exists. Would I like to join a big giant Tea Party boycott and throw it all out into the North River? Sure. But,
That's kind of what I was going to ask you next. I'm glad that you brought that up because we're trying to get at where you stand with things. The Main Street corridor, and I'm talking the Main Street corridor. Some people think the Main Street corridor is from 58
all the way
to Tri-Town gas
Tri-Town,
station.
yeah.
And then other people think the Main Street corridor starts at High Street
And just a little,
and works its way over to just past the train station.
maybe up to Elm
Street.
Maybe up to Elm Street, yeah.
Street. That's changing.
It is
There's a
changing.
couple of big buildings being built there. I understand the old Cranberry Building, and the Cranberry Building as we know it is for sale.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people are talking about that. And one of the key things that I read, and I'm going to put you right on the
Go ahead.
spot. It's an easy one. You've got no filter. I love it.
All right, what?
People say, why don't they stop it? Why don't they stop it? Who are they? Meaning the Board of Selectmen or the zoning.
Stop what?
Stop the building. And it's
Stop
because,
what building?
well, the
Mr.
buildings.
Egan's buildings?
Yeah, well, no, any building on that corridor.
Nobody wanted to tear down the Landis' house. Nobody wanted that changed. Nobody wanted the big, remember that big building that, was it a woodworking shop?
Yes, it
That
was.
went up and then it came down.
Yes. That was like almost vacant, it looked like, for years.
Mrs. Landis sold that property. She didn't want it anymore, from what I understand. It's a sad.
I knew the
it was a
Landises, we all did.
It was a sad property.
Yes.
Mr. Egan is building retail down and apartments up, I believe. That's
Yes.
how that's working.
That's how I understand it.
The one thing that I wish we'd have done with that is had a designated 40R, but we didn't, because that would have helped us with the railroad, the whole, this whole issue that we're talking about of building, having affordable housing. But it wasn't designated that way. They're going to be affordable. I'm not saying they're not. I don't even know what they're going to go for, but it's private. It's private. I would love to see something done with 1057.
1057, is that the
That's
Cranberry
the Cranberry
Building?
Building, yes.
It is for sale.
I know it is.
So
I think that's a big nut to buy, though, because I think there's a lot of mitigation that has to go on there.
Well, tearing it down.
Even if they were just to tear it down, I think there's a lot of mitigation they have to deal with.
I think what I'm asking is, there's been a tremendous amount of people that chime in about the building in Hanson. They love the small character of the town of Hanson. And they're seeing it, forget the 750 units that we talked about, just forget that.
Yeah.
They're seeing houses going up all over the place. And somehow they think that the select board or that the zoning board have some sort of special power to stop building on private property.
It's private property. If people choose to split their property up and sell it, I don't know what we can do to stop that. As long as it's done legally, as long as it's done within the proper zoning laws and everything, really, do I have a right to tell you what you should do with your property? No. Do I like the idea of someone taking a 5-acre piece of property and splitting it up into 2 or 3 pieces? No. But that's their prerogative.
So there's no physical way to stop that, is basically
Only
what
if you
you're
come up
saying.
with some kind of zoning, new bylaws or something to that says that if you own a 5-acre piece of property, you can't break it up. How right is that?
It's difficult at best,
Yeah,
I
it
would
is.
think, just
It is.
because the private person who owns the property might have been saving that as a retirement piece.
Yes.
And 10 were built over here just like it. Now all of a sudden you're changing the rules over here.
Exactly.
And I know this is a hard question. I'm asking you because I don't know.
I don't. Yeah.
Are there pieces of property, and this is probably a better question. I know we're getting away from what we're doing, but it's showing people where you're standing.
Right.
And you're standing there in one spot. You're not moving around. You're making it known. People will say it shouldn't be grandfathered. It should be grandfathered. It is the way it goes. The zoning thing is a whole nother issue.
It's a can of worms because every time it comes up, someone gets accused of being corrupt, whether or not they are. I mean, I heard this at town meeting. I heard it. One of the problems that we had, was it 2 meetings ago, when we had a lot of zoning changes on the warrant, nobody had gone over that with anybody. There was no education. You're asking the 120 people that showed up. I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know how many people were at that meeting, but
You're about right.
About right? You're asking those people who haven't had time to digest what's in front of them to pass something, and they suspect it because they think something's getting shoved through. I don't blame them. But then again, if we hold informational meetings, 5 people come.
Well, that's the difficult part, and that's why I was asking you, how do we change? How does a town change as
You
a
have
person
to get people
that's running?
interested. You've got to be interested. And I know everybody's working, everybody's busy, everybody has things to do. People with young people have kids have activities. It takes a lot of time. And as I said, I didn't do this until I could step away from some of the things that I was doing because I'm all over the place. So I get it. But at the same time, if you're gonna be loud about something, know what's going on for real. Do it on real information. Don't do it because you heard it on a Facebook group or whatever. That's the way I look at it. You got to know what you're talking about.
One more piece of property, and you're not going to believe it. We're winding down
Oh,
here.
oh.
It's hard to believe because we're having a good conversation, and this is wonderful banter. And I'm hoping for those that watch this show they get something out of this, and we have 300 people at town meeting. I'd be happy if
It
we
would be
had.
lovely if we had 300 people at town meeting.
I'd be happy if there was 150.
I know.
The property off of Pleasant Street, I believe we're going to call it the Hawks Ave property.
Avenue, yes.
There's been super amounts of discussion
Yes.
about DPW building, about preservation areas, should the building come down, should the building stay up, should we move the DPW there? What's your quick
I have never
thought?
thought it was a good idea to put our highway department the other side of town like that. I always thought that was a dumb idea. And I understand, I think the property was given with that idea in mind, but to me, that makes no sense to go down those little roads way down there and put a salt barn right on the Burridge. That makes no sense to me. I am, well, we won't get into what my ideas are about what's going on. I think you know Tony's got a plan.
The town
The
planner.
town planner has a plan, which I happen to be on board with. I wasn't there when they started the Hawks Avenue discussions. I would have said exactly what I just said now back then. And I'm paying the price for having that attitude from a few people in town. I'm sorry, but it was dumb. It was not a smart move. I don't think it was smart.
Well, you stand with you stand, and you stand
That's
in your
right.
convictions. And
Right there.
Ladies and gentlemen, you should know that. We've got to kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
You've got like a minute or so just to ask the voters or tell the voters why they should vote for Rein.
Well, they should vote for me because I mean what I say and I say what I mean, and I'm going to try as hard as I can to keep things under control, but progressing, and trying to find new ways of finding money and doing things that we want to do in the town. We want to keep moving. We don't want to be sedentary, and we don't want to, not change or anything, but we have to do it responsibly so that we're not hitting everybody's wallet. That's me.
Well, thanks, Ann.
Okay.
And thanks for being you.
Thank you.
I've done a lot of interviews, and this has been one of my finest moments as far as interviewing someone who's standing straight and telling them like it is. And I'm not saying they all know. I'm just saying it's been 3 or 4 years. I'm a little rusty myself.
Okay, there you
We're
go.
bouncing all around here. But it's for this particular segment of Election 24 is for the town people in Hanson to find out who the candidates are. As I said, I'm going to be interviewing Joe Weeks. He's a candidate for re-election. He is an incumbent. I'm going to be interviewing Frank Milisi. He is a new guy on the block. He has his own ideas. I'm going to get them both in, and you're going to be able to see it. There's talk about a possible debate. There's talk about lots of other things that we're going to try to get done for you before the election so you can figure out how you want to vote and where all the candidates sit. I am notified all of the school committee candidates, the 3 of them, Mrs. Cohen, Mrs. Conley, and Mrs. Mosier. I'm hoping to get them in here so they can give you their take on why they want to be elected to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee. I'm hoping that you will come back and stay with us and watch us. And as always, if you have any ideas, any questions, any comments, you can contact me at my email address, bobhayes4433@gmail.com, or you can call me on my cell phone at 617-538-0189. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this comment that I'm going to tell you, this is your town. If you want to make a difference, be proactive, not reactive. Be proactive. Come out, talk about it, come to town meeting. The town needs your input and wants your input. If you don't come to town meeting, don't cry afterwards. Come and be proactive. I think that all 5 members of the board would say that.
Not just town meeting. Come to the select board meetings. Give us ideas if you need to. Come talk to us.
And make sure you get out to vote. Thank you for watching Bring It On. I'm Bob Hayes. See you again.